Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Elko, Texas A&M, absolutely rolling on the recruiting trail now. Although the national media doesn't really seem to be recognizing it, Texas A&M is sitting there, number 2 ranked class in the country, 21 commitments in the fold, an average player ranking of 92.1. That is essentially telling us out of the 21 commitments Texas A&M has, they are averaging a top 150 nationally ranked football player. Now, the thing that should excite Texas A&M fans the most is we're sitting with a beautiful looking class in 2026. Look at all the names that are still not highlighted in red. And you could argue that Texas A&M could be the leader for some of the better names that we see on our screen. What might this class look like come signing day in December? That's the question I want to get into. We also have to talk about Zaden Krempin, four-star offensive lineman committed to Texas A&M last night or yesterday afternoon. To the Texas A&M fans, I apologize. I'm at least doing my best to hop on and break down the commitments as they come in. For some reason, I didn't see the news until late last night about Zaden Krempen. This is a football player that I really like, and many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan. Zaden Krempen was a Michigan target. I know a lot about this kid. Really fired up for Texas A&M here. Lot to talk about. Going to get a little bit nitty gritty in terms of where Texas A&M is going to continue to go in the 2026 cycle. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Texas A&M fans, appreciate you guys. It been a really fun last couple of days talking this program on the trail. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas has been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start with Zaden Crumpin real quick. Now, look, I think Texas A&M is going to sign a monster offensive line class in 2026? No, probably not. And it's not because Mike Elko doesn't want to build the line of scrimmage. He certainly does. I think it has a little bit more to do with you signed 6 guys in the 2025 cycle. I don't know if there's room to sign another 6 guys in the 2026 cycle. Texas A&M's being selective. One thing they're really prioritizing is versatility. I think all 3 offensive linemen that are currently committed to Texas A&M have some tackle guard versatility. Zaden Krempin, best way to put Zaden Krempen is probably the most polished offensive lineman that Texas A&M has in the 2026 cycle. And what personally I like the most about Zaden Krempen is the projection is pretty dang clean. He's another guy. We kind of talked about this yesterday afternoon with Avery Morcho, kind of say the same thing with Zaden Krempen. Do I think he's going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick? No, probably not. Does he seem like a guy that can be a multi-year starter for Texas A&M? Yes, absolutely. In a era of college football where it's so difficult to project what offensive linemen are going to make the step successfully to the SEC, you feel dang good that Zaden Krempin can be one of those guys. Has added some nice weight to his frame over the last couple of months. I think he's pushing around 290 pounds and carries the weight well. Now, I think he has some tackle athleticism. I look at him and say he's probably a guy that kicks inside. And I know Texas A&M was recruiting him at the offensive tackle position. I look at Lamont Rogers in 2025. I look at Sam Roseborough in the 2026 cycle. It's probably going to be tough to get on the football field as a starting tackle for Texas A&M over the next couple of years, which makes the Zaden Krempin commitment, I think, really important for Texas A&M, where, hey, this is a guy that can kick on the inside and probably be dang good as an interior offensive lineman for Texas A&M. Adam Cushing clearly valuing versatility. We don't want to land guys that pigeonhole themselves as, just a tackle body. Zaden Krempin is one of those guys you feel good about all along the offensive line. Going back to what this class looks like in 2026, one of the things that stands out to me the most, it's a very complete class. I mean, you look at this spreadsheet that we put together here, and there's not a ton of positions that are glaring concerns, and you start running down the position groups and say you feel really good about it, right? Helman Kassuga. What I'll say about Helman Kassuga, and we talked about him when he committed last summer, I believe. It was in the fall, I think. If you put the talent around Helman Kassuga, I think he can be I think you can win a national championship with Helman Kassuga at the helm. Now, do I think he is a elevator? Do I think he's a guy that can do it alone? No, probably not. But I think what intrigues you the most is, hey, Texas A&M is putting the pieces around a guy like Helman Kassuga. You got two of the best running backs in the country committed to Texas A&M. You've recruited the offensive line position very well over the last couple of cycles. You know that Texas A&M is going to be able to run the football over the next couple of years. And Helman Kassuga is a player, a quarterback that I think can be very successful when he has a run game to lean on and when he has difference makers on the outside. The wide receiver position, very fascinating. And if you're a Texas A&M fan, at least the way I look at it, just watch what Mike Elko decides to do here, because I think he's probably got an ace up his sleeve, if I were to guess. And what I mean by that is, look, you like the three wide receivers that you have committed. You are in the top two for a guy like Booby Feaster, in-state kid. Sounds like you're battling USC. My eyeballs are on Tristan Keys. It's been very clear that if Texas A&M likes a guy, they are not afraid to be a very aggressive and go land that football player. We saw it last cycle with Jerome Miles. We saw it last cycle with Lamont Rogers. I think we're currently seeing with a guy like Lamar Brown potentially. I would not be surprised if Texas A&M becomes a team that's a real threat to flip Tristan Keys from LSU. Now, he's committed to LSU right now. Tennessee's pushing for him. Miami's pushing for him. I think Texas A&M pushing for this kid pretty dang hard too. You land one of two between Booby Feaster and Tristan Keys. You feel great about what the pass catch room is going to look like for Texas A&M over the next couple of years. And heck, you have Jerome Miles coming in the 2025 cycle. I'm really excited about the young wide receiver room that Texas A&M is building. The offensive line position, think you're recruiting it really well. Just as importantly, I think you're developing the offensive line really well too. We talked about this yesterday. Adam Cushing, top 10 offensive line coach in the country, at least in my opinion, done a great job. And as he continues to acquire talent at the position, that offensive line should be a strong suit for Texas A&M over the next couple of years. Here's the big kicker: defensive line. Monster fan of the edge class that Texas A&M has brought in. Tristan Givens, Jordan Carter, Samu Moala from California. Like all three of those cats, can Texas A&M hold on to all of those three and then add one of the three that's not highlighted? Whether it's Jaquez Wilkes, whether it's KJ Ford from Duncanville, whether it's Tank Jones from Alabama. Now, Tank Jones seems like probably the farthest fetch here. I think he's probably going to be an Alabama/Auburn guy. Jaquez Wilkes and KJ Ford. To me, KJ Ford, one of my favorite edge rushers in the 2026 cycle. If you can land one out of the three names that is not highlighted, you feel great about what the edge rusher position is going to look like for Texas A&M. This is what I want to highlight here. The big bodies in the middle of the defensive line. This is a position I think Mike Elko probably learned the hard way, that it's really hard to address this position in the transfer portal. And I think they hit with a guy like Tyler Oneedham, I think how you say it, from Iowa State. Thought he looked awesome in the spring game. But I think what Mike Elko learned is, hey, that I don't know if you'd want to use the word lucky, but I think what Mike Elko would say is, hey, we don't want to have to rely on going to the transfer portal and addressing that position. Look, if you need to grab a wide receiver or if you need to grab a defensive back, you probably can do that pretty easily in the portal. What you can't do is build your offensive line or build your defensive line in the portal. Lamar Brown, that's the name that you look at and say, number one, why do I think Texas A&M wants him? Is because I think he's head and shoulders the best interior defensive lineman that you see in the class in 2026. This sounds like it's going to be a LSU Texas A&M battle. There are a lot of people, I ain't no insider, y'all know that, but there are a lot of insiders who believe that Texas A&M is in the driver's seat, and that seems to be the player that, hey, if you ask Mike Elko, you can only leave with one more prospect in the 2026 cycle. Which one are you choosing? It's probably Lamar Brown. In my opinion, absolute game wrecker. And when you have a guy that is head and shoulders better than everybody else, it's very hard to replace the value that Lamar Brown can bring you. I fully agree with Texas A&M pushing their chips in to go out and get him. If you can do that and then land a guy like Bryce Perry right too, I'll say this: you land just one of the two. you're feeling really good about what the defensive line class can be for Texas A&M. If you land both, we're talking about a legendary class, a class that I think Texas A&M will win a national championship with. Going to the back end, you love your cornerbacks, Brandon Arrington, Victor Singleton, two top 100 guys, two guys you feel great about being difference makers. Then the safety position. Can you go land one or two out of the three names that are not highlighted? Braylon Womack, to me, I think is head and shoulders better than Taylor Wilson and Tamarian Watkins. That might be a tough pull. Like, I know Ohio State and Florida are real players in that one too. Similar to how we just talked about Lamar Brown, I think Braylon Womack's one of those guys that represents a player, a piece of value that you probably can't really replace. It reminds me a little bit of Caleb Downs in terms of how comfortable this kid is out on the football field and his understanding of the sport. Moral of the story here, I could probably cut this episode down to a 30-second episode, and that is Texas A&M is rolling on the recruiting trail. They currently have a class that can win them a national championship. You sit here in the middle of the summer saying, hey, how can we put the cherry on top? It's probably not going to be 10 more commitments. It's probably only going to be 5 to 6. But can those 5 or 6 guys be a Tristan Keys, be a Lamar Brown, be a Braylon Womack? If you can land a couple of those cherry on top kind of guys, you're looking at an extremely talented roster over the next couple of years. And look, if there's one question we don't have about Mike Elko, he's a good football coach. We know that. Our question was, can he recruit? We've gotten our answer very quickly there. If you give Mike Elko this kind of talent, there's no doubt in my mind Texas A&M can be a very dangerous football team over the next couple of years. It feels like that class that we look back on in 5 years and say, hey, this was the class that allowed Texas A&M to reach the next level. As many people want to drag Texas A&M for just being an 8-4 football team, this is the kind of class that'll taking that next step in this landscape's hard. And I think a lot of fans realize that. How do you do it? I think it starts with the talent acquisition, and I think Texas A&M is doing that. We will pause it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.